I was thinking how, different kinds of poets write different kinds of poetry. You were talking about Stevens earlier, but I think you can say almost that Norse is on the side of the ecstatic, but not in a sort of showmanship-like way that, let's say, Ginsberg was. I think there are different types of ecstatics, a more contemplative one, more thoughtful ones, and more unrestrained ones, more publicly conscious ones, like Ginsberg. And maybe this speaks to the kind of element of difference. Does Norse talk about his own opinion of Ginsberg? What did he think of him?
I can't remember from his autobiography, and I haven't finished reading all of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
He knew Ginsberg, liked him, but doesn't have a heck of a lot to say about his work. Except, for a appreciation of Howell, which of course is a seminal piece of work.
Absolutely.
But he doesn't list Ginsberg as one of the real influences on his own poetry. The person to whom he gives the greatest credit is William Carlos Williams.
Interesting.
He absolutely loathes Ezra Pound.
Does he?
At every level.
For what reason? Because of his sort of proto-fascistic
his
sympathies?
fascism, his crudity, his personal cruelty. And I get the sense he couldn't make a hell of a lot of sense out of his poetry either.
Very few people can. I checked out his Confucian Odes, Ezra Pound's, to try to maybe pick something out for my students, because we're going through Confucius and Lao Tzu. And I have a hard time figuring out exactly where Pound is coming from, what his usage of Chinese classics actually amount to. I'm not really familiar with the Pound scholarship and interpretation thereof, so basically I read out of sort of intuition to see if it's going to fit or not. So I have to kind of take a closer look at this. What is your sense of Ezra Pound's poetry?
I don't particularly like it, but maybe because I don't understand it. I tried to read the cantos. The one place where Pound touched on some scholarly concerns of mine was in his attitude toward Jacksonian democracy. He believed that Martin Van Buren was our greatest president because of hard money policies and what have you. And in one of the cantos he has that rant against usury, which is interesting in its way, but in terms of any real understanding or analysis, I couldn't find anything there.
Do you remember that famous sort of satirical send-up that Henry Miller did, Money and How It Gets That Way? He wrote that in response to, of course, Ezra Pound's postcard that Pound wrote after he read Tropic of Cancer, or was it Capricorn? Basically he says, well, money, and how does it get that way? Some kind of poetic, bullshit, postcard. And Miller wrote a whole fucking theoretical excursus, or academic, send-up, which was really hilarious. Yeah. Apparently Miller's father, that was the only piece of writing Miller's father liked of all his son's writings.
I believe that. Well, a lot of people who are concerned with the technical aspects of poetry have great admiration for Pound, but I have a tin ear where that stuff is concerned. I don't know where he's.
I've yet to meet a person who liked Pound. Maybe some enthusiastic, open-minded Poundian, person could pound the joy of Pound into me.
Pound's private secretary, Noel Stock, was a member of our English department here for a lot of years.
Is that right?
And he was Australian, kind of an eccentric guy, very much a ladies' man.
Just like Pound.
Bit of a roue, actually. The last I heard of him was he'd become a very, very reactionary Roman Catholic. Saving his soul, I guess, in the last days or something.
Trying to make up.
But some people in the English department, of course, had a very reverent attitude toward Stock because, he'd been close to the great man. I wasn't that taken with him.
It's kind of horse shit, this kind of a reverential canonization. Like, I mean, this is one. You mean the passage? You read that passage in Norse's autobiography about W.H. Alden, about the English professor.
Yes.
Who didn't mind getting fucked in the ass or something just because he was going to go down in literary history.
Yeah, right.
And of course, Alden can't perform. He just falls drunk and goes to sleep.
Auden couldn't do a damn thing. Well, Norse's portrayal of Auden is certainly harsh. Of course, Auden's still his boyfriend, which
I guess he's got reasons
might
for
have
it.
something to do with it.
Yeah.
Auden's a sad figure. Very sad figure.
Do you like his poetry?
Yes, I do, actually.
Yeah, I do too.
Some of the early stuff. I wonder about his own judgment, though. I thought September 1939 was a very, very fine poem. Auden didn't like it, expressed it. And I never understood why until I read in Norse that Auden disliked the poem because it expressed some hope that human beings could actually control their own destiny. That Auden had apparently embraced a very fatalistic, Augustinian kind of Christianity, which made man just a miserable fallen sinner without hope.
That's right.
And I guess that may be one reason why I like the early Auden. When I was dean at commencement ceremonies, I used to read to the graduates part of Auden's Elegiac Ode on William Butler Yeats. Last part of that is just beautiful and eloquent, statement about poetry. So yes, I think Auden is uneven, but he's written some very, very fine poetry that is accessible. Far cry from Pound.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking
I
about...
can't imagine reading Pound to a graduating class. What would one read?
I have no idea. I don't know Pound well enough to pick and choose, but I would assume that most of the graduating seniors would find it totally incomprehensible. Well, you're going to be confused after you graduate. Maybe that's the message you want to send out.
Well, it was a general rule of mine never to read to the graduating class something I didn't understand myself.
That's a good decision.
I thought that was fair.
Unless you want questions you can't answer.
Yeah.
Please.
Harold Norse, The Business of Poetry. The business of poetry is the image of a young man making music and love to a young girl whose interest in love and music coincides with an enormous despair in both. Their inner selves, like a plucked guitar, in the dry, hot sun of hope, where savage and brutal men are tearing life like a page from a very ancient and yellow book.
It's pretty good.
That's